This program is supported by Protect Plus Gold, a broad-spectrum disinfectant, kills 99.9% of disease-causing germs and works in 10 minutes.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to the program. On tonight's headlines.
Organizers of the Summer Olympics banned Japanese fans from the upcoming Tokyo Games in the face of surging virus infections.
Pfizer and BioNTech said they would seek authorization for a third dose of their COVID-19 vaccine to boost its efficacy as the Delta variant drove devastating outbreaks in Asia, including in Thailand, where fresh curbs were announced Friday.
And several subway stations were flooded and major roads were cut in New York ahead of the expected arrival of Storm Elsa, which has moved up the U.S. East Coast after lashing Florida with winds and rain.
19.
And President Rodrigo Duterte expressed gratitude to the Japanese government for its donation of more than 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine to the Philippines.
First, organizers of the Summer Olympics banned Japanese fans from the upcoming Tokyo Games in the face of surging virus infections. And foreign fans were also banned. The new announcement came as the government declared an emergency in Tokyo lasting through the Olympics. The head of the Japanese Olympic Committee acknowledged the event will not be the same. Take a look.
東京都、埼玉県、千葉県、神奈川県については、政府の方針では、観客基準は 50% 以内で5000人までとされているところですが、今大会においては、感染拡大の防止等に向けた、より厳しい措置として無観客となりました。やはり、この東京大会を開催するにあたりまして、多くの都民、そしてまた国民の皆さんに、開催に向けたご理解をいただくには、やはり残念ではありますけれども、無観客ということを決定した方が、より多くの方に開催に向けてのご理解をいただけるのではないかという判断のもとに決定をさせていただきました。
いや、オリンピックはですね、それに向けて世界中のアスリートが長い努力をしてきてる、そういうことですからね、これはやった方がいいと。それでやることによって世界の人たちが勇気づけられるということになりますからね。でその時に大事なのはオリンピックがコロナの拡大の、契機になったということにならないように。
でもね、撲滅するまでは頑張らなきゃダメです。
とにかく商業の人を何とかしてあげてほしい。みんな苦しんでるから。
The decision to ban fans came just over 2 weeks before the opening ceremony, and some ticket holders expressed frustration at the last-minute move. There was also anger from some Japanese social media users, with the phrase "No Spectator Olympics" trending on Twitter. With infections rising in the capital, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga announced that Tokyo would be under a virus state of emergency from July 12 until August 22. And that measure is significantly looser than lockdown seen elsewhere, largely limiting alcohol sales, shortening opening hours for restaurants, and capping event attendance at 5,000 people.
Hidenori Suzuki, in charge of ticket sales for the Olympics, becomes emotional as his voice breaks when answering questions over ticket sales after the last-minute decision to hold the games without spectators in Tokyo. Take a look.
ま
もともと本当に皆様にもですね、多大なご協力をいただいて、東京2020大会を楽しみにしていただいてたお客様に、こういう形で、本当にご期待に沿うことができないことを本当に残念に思います。皆様と一緒にぜひ大会を成功させてですね、一人でも多くの子どもたちや若い人たちに一生の財産となるような機会をご提供したいと、そういう思いで取り組んできたということはぜひご理解いただきたいと思います。で、あと
最初冒頭ですね、鈴木の方から
The decision to ban fans came just over 2 weeks before the opening ceremony, and some ticket holders, as said earlier, expressed frustration at the last-minute move. Organizers were forced Thursday night to yield to a surging domestic virus caseload and bar spectators from the majority of Olympic events. That decision means the Games will be the first to take place largely behind closed doors, a blow to athletes who will now compete in front of largely empty stadiums.
Meanwhile, the Olympic flame arrived in Tokyo today with just 2 weeks until the Games open, as athletes and fans mourned a heartbreaking decision to bar spectators from almost all venues over the virus. In a taste of what is to come for thousands of athletes who will compete at the pandemic-postponed Games, the public was kept away from the arrival of the flame, and a welcoming ceremony was attended only by the media and officials. As the final countdown to the July 23 opening ceremony begins, the mood is far from the usual festive Olympic spirit. Tokyo will be under a virus state of emergency from Sunday until August 22, putting a further dampener on an already unusual Olympics. Governor Yuriko Koike received the Olympic flame in a lantern at the ceremony in an empty stadium. The nationwide torch relay was supposed to stoke excitement about the Games, but almost half the legs have been taken off public roads or otherwise altered because of virus concerns. And despite the disruptions, Koike said the flame's passage offered hope that she said torchbearers would carry into the Olympic Stadium.
In other news, Pfizer and BioNTech said they would seek authorization for a third dose of their COVID-19 vaccine to boost its efficacy as the Delta variant drove devastating outbreaks in Asia, including in Thailand, where fresh curves were announced today. With the pandemic once again wreaking havoc, Japan banned fans from most Olympic events and placed Tokyo under a virus state of emergency throughout the Games just 2 weeks before the opening ceremony. The highly transmissible Delta variant, first detected in India, is sweeping across the globe as countries race to vaccinate their populations to ward off fresh outbreaks. Pfizer and BioNTech said Thursday they expected that a third dose will perform well against the strain and that they would be seeking authorization in the United States, in Europe, and other regions in coming weeks. Initial data from ongoing trials showed a third shot pushed antibody levels 5 to 10 times higher against the original coronavirus strain and the Beta variant first detected in South Africa, compared with the first 2 doses alone, according to a statement. The company said they expected similar results for Delta, but added they are also developing a vaccine specifically tailored to fight the deadly strain.
And that news came as Thailand battled a fresh outbreak on its shores, forcing authorities to roll out fresh restrictions today, including a 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew in Bangkok and also banning non-essential travel across the country, normally overrun by tourists at this time of the year. Here's Veronica Carino to tell us more. Hello, Veronica.
Hello, Alma. Yes, Thai authorities announced a 7-hour night curfew across the capital Bangkok and 9 provinces on Friday, along with tougher restrictions to curb the spread of the coronavirus. A curfew from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. will begin Monday, and people should work from home. The announcement affects the capital of more than 10 million people, as well as surroundings and southern provinces. Residents are barred from gathering in groups of more than 5 people, while public transport networks will shut down from 9 p.m. each night. Supermarkets, restaurants, banks, pharmacies, and electronic stores can stay open, but other shops must close. Malls also must shut by 8 p.m. In April last year, the government ordered a nationwide curfew, but Thailand spent the bulk of 2020 without much community transmission. Thailand's economy is suffering its worst performance since the 1997 Asian economic crisis. Premier Prayut Chan-o-cha indicated Friday that he will forego his salary for 3 months. The restrictions come as the kingdom attempts to reopen as a tourism destination. Tourism makes up close to 20% of the national income, and industry has been on its knees because of tough border restrictions and strict quarantine measures. A pilot scheme to offer quarantine-free holiday to vaccinated travelers kicked off on the popular holiday island of Phuket last week, but so far arrivals have been limited due to the red tape. The Thai government announced plans last month to reopen the country to fully vaccinated visitors in October. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Veronica, for your update, and looking forward to the developments as we follow this pandemic situation around the world, especially in Thailand and its tourism industry. Thank you, and stay safe.
Yes, Alma, thank you. And likewise, reporting live from Thailand, this is Veronica Carino. We live in interesting times.
In other news, South Korea will raise coronavirus curbs to their highest level yet in the Seoul metropolitan area, warning that a record rise in new cases had reached maximum crisis level and amid fears of a fourth wave of the virus. We have Christine Joel Uy for that report. Christine.
Yes, CJ. South Korea will raise coronavirus curbs to their highest level in the Seoul metropolitan area, the country's prime minister said Friday, warning a record spike in new cases had reached maximum crisis level. The country had previously been held up as a model of how to combat the pandemic, with the public largely following social distancing and other rules, but it was slow to start the vaccine rollout due to supply shortages. Under the new restrictions set to come into force on Monday and last for 2 weeks, gatherings of more than 2 people will be banned after 6 p.m. and schools will be closed. Cafes and restaurants are allowed limited seating, and dine-in services are prohibited after 10 p.m. Entertainment establishments, including bars and clubs, will be shut, and all public rallies are banned except for one-person rallies. On Friday, it recorded 1,316 cases, its highest daily rise since the pandemic began, with most new infections in capital Seoul and its surrounding areas, home to almost half of the South Korean population. Cluster infections have surfaced in areas including schools, offices, and shopping malls, with people in their 20s and 30s, most of whom are not yet eligible for vaccinations, driving up the numbers according to the health authorities. The measures to be imposed for the Greater Seoul area would be the strictest since the South Korean government restricted businesses in the city of Daegu after an outbreak at a megachurch early last year led to the country's first major surge. On the business side, on Friday, South Korea's Kospi index fell as much as 2%, led by a fall in retail, travel, and outdoor activity-related stocks, while its currency weakened for the third day. If the restrictions are extended beyond the initial 2-week period or widened beyond Seoul, they may also affect the Bank of Korea's plan to start reining in stimulus initiatives this year. A Bloomberg survey of economists earlier this month showed the central bank is expected to raise the key rate by 25 basis points before the year end. CJ?
Well, thank you so much for your report. We're all hoping that those new restrictions will drive the infection numbers down. Please do take care over there in Korea.
Thank you. This is Christine Jewel Uyabut. We live in interesting times.
And the UK government said it expected to announce a plan soon allowing entry to fully vaccinated foreigners and British expatriates. Scientists are also worried that Britain's plan to lift most of the curbs within England on July 19 will send new outbreaks of COVID-19. Here's Aribel Celestino joining us live from the United Kingdom. Hello, Aribel.
Hi, Alma. And yes, the government said that on Thursday from July 19, fully vaccinated UK residents and children will no longer have to quarantine on their return to England. The announcement makes summer travel easier to some of Britain's favorite holiday destinations, including France, Greece, and Spain. But however, the plan is limited to travelers who received their vaccinations through the UK's health service, which means it excludes British expatriates and foreigners jabbed abroad, triggering criticisms from expats in particular. Shaps also mentioned that widening the scheme to expats and other travelers from overseas was something we are actively working on at the moment. The minister said he expected in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to come forward and say more about other locations in the world. However, he said it was easier done from some places like the EU, where they have a digital app coming along, than it is in the United States, where I think they have 50 different systems, one for each state, largely paper-based. And as you know, Alma, Britain recorded 32,551 COVID cases on Wednesday as infections surge owing to the more contagious Delta variant. It already has one of the world's worst death tolls in Europe, with more than 128,000 fatalities. But the government insists that with vaccinations keeping hospitalizations and deaths relatively low, it is time to start reopening the economy here in the UK after its third lockdown. Furthermore, the UK government said on Friday that it is expected to announce a plan in the next fortnight allowing entry to double vaccinated foreigners and British expatriates as it eliminates most coronavirus curbs. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps also defended the government's decision to allow 1,000 football fans from Italy for Sunday's European Championship final against England to join some of the 60,000 other supporters. However, Alma, many scientists are worried that the government's plan to lift more curbs in England on July 19 and the green light to a large presence at the football final will see new outbreaks of COVID-19. Back to you, Alma.
Okay, so you mentioned about the Euro 2020. Since quite a large number of fans will be coming in from Italy and they will be allowed to enter the UK for the championship on Sunday, how will that work in terms of rules and guidelines?
Well, Alma, Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said that the fans from Italy would be on specially chartered flights and they would also stay in London for only 12 hours and also have a segregated zone at the Wembley Stadium. And after the match, they would return home. And the secretary also mentioned that they aren't able to travel anywhere else and that it is a very restricted program. Over to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Stay safe.
Thank you so much, Alma, from the United Kingdom. I am Aribel Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
In other news, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte expressed gratitude to the Japanese government for its donation of more than 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine to the country. During the turnover rights of 1 million or 1.124 million COVID-19 jabs developed by AstraZeneca, the president thanked the Japanese government and Japanese Prime Minister for helping the Philippine government have an equitable access to vaccines. vaccines. Take a look.
19. These more than 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine will surely go a long way in our quest for herd immunity. Japan continues to be our strong partner in various development programs. Our cooperation in fighting the pandemic is truly an indication of the deep friendship between our two countries.
Duterte also thanked Japan for ensuring the safe and efficient delivery of AstraZeneca vaccines to the Philippines and preserving the jab's quality and integrity by providing cold chain transport and ancillaries. The donation of 1.124 million vials of AstraZeneca vaccine to the Philippines is part of the Japanese government's initiatives to support Southeast Asian nations amid the pandemic. Get vaccinated, public urged anew. Following the arrival of AstraZeneca vaccines in the country, Duterte renewed his call on his fellow Filipinos to get vaccinated against COVID-19 to stop its further transmission. Duterte reassured the public that COVID-19 vaccines being delivered to the country are safe and effective. Duterte also reminded fully vaccinated individuals to continue following health and safety protocols amid the prevailing pandemic. He likewise lauded the National Task Force Against COVID-19 and the Department of Health for ensuring the successful delivery, distribution, and rollout of COVID-19 vaccines across the country.
To Brazil now, where President Jair Bolsonaro used foul language as he said he would refuse to answer corruption charges that a Senate committee is investigating involving government vaccine purchases. The Senate's Parliamentary Commission on Inquiry, known in Portuguese by its acronym CPI, has been for weeks investigating Bolsonaro's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Take a look.
Eu não vou entrar em detalhes sobre essa CPI aí do Renan Calheiros e Omar Aziz, que dispensa comentários, né? E não vou responder nada para esses caras. Eu não vou responder nada para esse tipo de gente, em hipótese alguma. É um documento para eu responder. Você sabe qual é a minha resposta, pessoal? Caguei para a CPI. Não vou responder nada.
Now, senators on the commission have asked Bolsonaro to answer charges that a deal to purchase the Indian-made Covaxin vaccine was a front to embezzle millions of dollars, that a Bolsonaro ally masterminded the plan, and that the president knew about it. Thousands of demonstrators across Brazil took to the streets on Saturday to protest against the president, Jair Bolsonaro. Demonstrators gathered in over 40 cities to demand his impeachment and greater access to COVID-19 vaccines. The Brazilian president has been widely criticized for not taking up early offers to buy coronavirus vaccines and downplaying the severity of the virus despite being infected by it himself. Bolsonaro has opposed lockdown measures, social distancing, and face masks.
Now in Europe, the Delta variant was also threatening the return to normal life in a region desperate to restart the busy summer tourism season. The variant was expected to be the main strain in France as soon as this weekend, even as vaccines rates tick upwards. But only 21% of people aged 18 to 29 have been fully vaccinated, sparking fears of dangerous resurgence. Nightclubs in the country were allowed to reopen on Friday, but only at 75% capacity, with mask wearing encouraged. That has made many clubs reluctant to open, since only 21% of people aged 18 to 29, the key clubbing demographic, have been fully vaccinated with 2 doses.
Donc là, on a un petit DJ set pour les...
And a lockdown in Australia's largest city was tightened today as new COVID-19 infections hit a record. And authorities warned an outbreak of the Delta variant was spinning out of control. Take a look.
Had a degree of complacency, and now when we look around the world and we look at countries that are opening up, that are living freely with COVID and the Delta strain, They're able to do that because half of their population is vaccinated. We're nowhere near that yet. So until we get substantial rates of vaccination, we cannot afford to live with the virus. We have to quash it now. New South Wales will be further tightening restrictions in those areas that already have stay-at-home orders. So previously we'd said up to 10 people can exercise outdoors. That is now 2 people. One person from the household should go out shopping to buy essential items. Browsing is not allowed. From Sunday, funerals will go back down to 10 people because
Sydney is now in its 3rd week of lockdown, but continues to post record new infections among a population that is overwhelmingly unvaccinated. Sydney has seen 439 new infections since mid-June, and that number is low compared to most global cities. But Australia has so far prevented widespread community transmission, and just 9% of the population are fully vaccinated. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Mamang sorbetero, tayo sumayaw, kalembang mong hawak, muling ikaw ay batang munti sa'yo'y naghihintay, biglang ligaya ngayong tagkaraw. Mamang sorbetero, tayo sumayaw, kalembang mong hawak, muling ikaw ay mainit na labi, nagbabagang mata, sunog na pag-ibig, parang hawa mo na. Mamang sorbetero, anong ngalan mo? Tinda mong ice cream, gustong gusto ko. Init ng buhay, pinapawi mo. Sama ng loob, nalilimutan ko. La 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 la
Broadcast journalist Weng de la Fuente returns on Philippine television and radio to deliver top stories and engage with the country's policymakers, shapers, and movers. Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa Balitalakayan.
Ako si Weng de la Fuente at itong Balitalakayan, we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to the news. The U.S. military mission in Afghanistan will officially conclude on August 31st. President Biden moved up the deadline from September 11, and he also defended the pullout in the face of Taliban gains. He said the U.S. did not go to Afghanistan to nation build, and he pressed Afghan leaders to prove their mettle. Take a look.
I will not say.
Mission accomplished moment. Evacuate.
Is the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped, as well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. We did not go to Afghanistan to nation build. And it's the right and the responsibility of the Afghan people alone to decide their future and how they want to run their country. Together with our NATO allies and partners, we have trained and equipped over nearly 300,000 current serving members of the military, the Afghan National Security Force, and many beyond that who are no longer serving. In 2014, some argued one more year. So we kept fighting. We kept taking casualties. In 2015, the same, and on and on. Nearly 20 years of experience has shown us that the current security situation only confirms that just one more year of fighting in Afghanistan is not a solution, but a recipe for being there indefinitely. 2,448 Americans killed, 20,722 more wounded, and untold thousands coming home with unseen trauma to their mental health. I will not send another generation of Americans to war in Afghanistan with no reasonable expectation.
In Afghanistan, the Taliban claim to be in control of 85% of Afghanistan, including a key border crossing with Iran, following a sweeping offensive launched as U.S. troops pulled out of the war-torn nation. Hours after President Joe Biden issued a staunch defense of the U.S. withdrawal, the Taliban said fighters had seized the border town of Islam Kala, completing an arc of territory from the Iranian border to the frontier with China. In Moscow, a delegation of Taliban officials said they controlled some 250 of Afghanistan's 398 districts, a claim impossible to independently verify and disputed by the government. The Taliban have been emboldened by the troop withdrawal and, with peace talks with the government deadlocked, appear to be pressing for a full military victory. Still, on Thursday, a member of the negotiating team in Doha insisted the insurgents were seeking a negotiated settlement.
10 years after South Sudan achieved independence, more children there are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance than ever before. That according to the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, on Tuesday. Take a look.
We are actually going through the worst humanitarian crisis since independence 10 years ago. Factors include the continuous violence and insecurity, both political violence and armed conflict, as well as intercommunal violence with breakdowns of law and order at local levels, cycles of revenge killing, rapes, and so on, as well as the impact of climate change and flooding. 8.3 million people need humanitarian assistance, and 4.5 million of those are children. South Sudan is really one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world and one of the most forgotten. And we have the highest percentage of children in need in the world as part of the total population.
The high level of food insecurity in the country is a particular concern, and the agency expects some 1.4 million children will suffer acute malnutrition this year, the highest number since 2013. More than 300,000 youngsters are expected to suffer from the worst form of malnutrition and could be at risk of dying if they do not get treatment. Meanwhile, South Sudan also has the highest proportion of out-of-school youth children or out-of-school children in the world. Limited access to education as well as high dropout rates means some 2.8 million children are not in school, representing more than 70% of school-aged children. School closures due to the COVID-19 pandemic have also pushed an additional 2 million children out of classroom.
In other news, several subway stations were flooded and major roads were cut in New York ahead of the expected arrival of Storm Elsa, which has moved up the U.S. East Coast after lashing Florida with winds and rain. Take a look. Between 2 and 4 inches of water fell in a series of thunderstorms over the city and surrounding areas on Thursday afternoon, according to the National Weather Service, and it caused extensive flash flooding in certain places. Subway passengers posted their video footage on Twitter of flooded platforms at the 157th Street station north of Manhattan. Commuters could be seen waist deep in the water, crossing a dark pool to reach the station's platforms. Some major roads, including in the Bronx, were temporarily closed, disrupting traffic. New York police tweeted footage of motorists being stranded by the water. And the National Weather Service warned of possible new flooding by Friday morning U.S. time, with the expected arrival of heavy rains brought by Storm Elsa, which is moving up from Florida.
Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away.
Protect yourself and loved ones. Use Protect Plus Gold, a broad-spectrum disinfectant that kills 500 strains of bacteria, fungi, and viruses such as coronavirus and other disease-causing microorganisms. Also potent against viruses in pets. It kills 99.9% of disease-causing germs and works in 10 minutes. Dissolve 1 teaspoon in 1 liter of water. Apply on areas for disinfection or use it for misting. Protect Plus Gold.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. The death toll from the collapse of an apartment building in Florida has risen to 64, according to officials, with 76 more people missing and presumed dead. Authorities announced on Wednesday they have decided to transition from a search and rescue mission for potential survivors to an operation to recover remains. Take a look.
It is with deep, profound sadness that this afternoon I'm able to share that we made the extremely difficult decision to transition from Operation Search and Rescue to Recovery.
It was tough. I appreciated what they did for doing the vigil, but the work's going to go on, and obviously they're going to identify every single person, and we obviously want to do all we can for the survivors and the family members to get them on their feet as best as we possibly can. It is not going to be easy. This is a big void that's going to be felt.
Multiple investigations are underway to determine the cause of the collapse. A 2018 report released by city officials revealed fears of major structural damage in the complex, from the concrete slab under the pool deck to columns and beams in the parking garage. In a letter to residents in April, Jean Wodnicki, chair of the Condo Association, described accelerating damage to the 40-year-old building since then, and repairs had been set to begin soon. Local authorities ordered safety reviews of nearby buildings following the disaster, including Champlain Towers North, the sister tower of the condo block that fell down.
Tropical Storm Elsa made landfall in Florida on Wednesday, lashing the Gulf Coast of the southern U.S. state with winds and rain, but it lost strength as it moved inland. The National Hurricane Center said the center of the storm, which was downgraded from a Category 1 hurricane overnight, made landfall in Taylor County along the Gulf Coast of northern Florida. Tampa Airport suspended commercial flights from Tuesday into Wednesday, but the storm ended up making landfall well to the north of the third largest city in Florida. Elsa was logged as the first hurricane of this year's Atlantic season before being downgraded to a tropical storm again. The National Hurricane Center said western and northern portions of the Florida Peninsula could expect between 3 and 6 inches of rain, raising the possibility of considerable flooding.
In Haiti now, police said a 28-member hit squad made up of Americans and Colombians assassinated President Jovenel Moise, adding that 8 were still at large as the country lurched into political chaos. One day after Moise was killed and his wife Martine wounded by gunmen in their Port-au-Prince home, the poorest country in the Americas has no president or working parliament and 2 men claiming to be in charge as prime minister. Police paraded some of the suspects before the media Thursday, along with Colombian passports and weapons they had seized. The head of the Haiti's National Police, Leon Charles, vowed to track the other 8 down. Authorities have not confirmed the identities of the 2 Americans of Haitian origin. Officials have said the killers spoke English and Spanish. The U.S. State Department said it could not confirm that any U.S. citizen was arrested. Haiti's ambassador to Washington, Bochit Edmond, has said the killers were professional mercenaries disguised as U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agents. Take a look.
They are speaking Spanish and they presented themselves as DEA agents. And as we know, this is not the way DEA operates. And Haiti, whenever there is an operation, it's well planned with the U.S. Embassy, the Haitian police. I believe they are fake DEA agents and they're speaking Spanish. And
Meanwhile, water surrounding MV Palawan Pearl, the half-sunk vessel of Baseco Beach after a ship collision on Thursday, are showing minimal traces of oil sheen, according to the Philippine Coast Guard today. In a Facebook post, the PCG said the Marine Environmental Protection, or MEP, group of the PCG Station Manila continues to monitor the status of the distressed vessel located about 100 meters from the Baseco Beach shoreline. Based on satellite or initial investigation, MV Palawan Pearl was traveling from the Commander's Wharf at the Baseco compound towards El Nido, Palawan, while Cyprus flag utility ship BKM 104 was headed towards the Manila Bay anchorage area in Bulacan when this incident occurred. Based on witness accounts, it said that MV Palawan Pearl was sailing at around 7 knots and was 3 kilometers from the mouth of Pasig River when it noticed the BKM 104 around 100 meters away from its port, or the left side, and was sailing at 10 knots. It said that BKM 104 only sustained minimal paint damage, while no injuries were reported from both ships.
A massive blaze tore through a Bangladesh factory, killing at least 52 people, trapped by flames that forced workers to leap for their lives from upper floors, emergency services said. About 30 people were injured in that fire, and hundreds of distraught relatives and other workers waited anxiously outside the food factory as it continued to rage. The latest fire broke out at Hashem Food and Beverage Factory in Rupganj, an industrial town outside Dhaka, on Thursday afternoon, and was still raging almost 24 hours later. Normally, there would be more than 1,000 workers in the building, but many had left for the day when the fire started. The overnight toll of 3 dead rose dramatically as firefighters reached the 3rd floor and found 49 more bodies. More than 30 people were injured and some jumped again from the upper floors as flames engulfed the 6-story building, according to Police Inspector Sheikh Kabirul Islam. Emergency services were battling to put out the fire on the 5th and 6th floors. Firefighters using ropes rescued 25 people from the roof of the factory that made noodles, fruit juices, and candy.
And two Filipino go-kart racers got the first and second spots in the fourth place season of the 12 Series go-kart competition in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Here's Echo Ortelesa Quinola for that report.
Two Filipino go-kart racers got the first and second spots in the fourth race season of the 12 Series go-kart competition in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. This event was sponsored by MoneyPlus and Digicel PNG Limited and was held at the ATS 8 Mile Papua New Guinea Defense Force hangar. First placer, Ronaldo Ray Socan, owner of Digital Billboard, and Sonny Engero landed in second spot, outshined other racers as they concentrated carefully with all their approach in every turn. They avoided skidding and spinning as they maneuvered through the racing track. Leon Naijen of Track Pro placed third. Apart from Filipinos, different nationalities such as Australians, New Zealanders, Papua New Guineans, and a Greek geared up to drive on every corner and every track. Lamana Hotel manager and president of Go-Kart PNG, who is also a racer himself, urges others who have the passion and interest to join this fierce racing series.
The nationalities are mainly the majority is Australians. There is a couple of New Zealanders. There is 3 Filipinos and two locals and a Greek one, which is me. We want to get as many Papua New Guineans involved in this as possible, and Filipinos, of course. And yeah, I mean, we want to get as many people involved in this as possible. Yeah.
Sokan is not only into this high level of motorsports, but also a passionate diver.
Basically, it's a inexpensive motorsports that that's quite fast. We race up to 130 kilometers, and you're only an inch off the ground. Like with any competitive sports, right? Like in the beginning, you're apprehensive all the way to the lead up to the actual race day. And as soon as that flag goes, you sit in that cart and that flag goes down, things change. Your adrenaline kicks in. You're on what I call a hyper mode, where you just focus. You don't see anything else. You see the cart around, you see the races, and you try to pick your line. Try not to get bumped and try to avoid and where you're gonna attack, where you're gonna turn, where your braking point is. It's just automatic after that. You don't even think about it. It's not very, and it's really good that we have 3 Filipinos actually racing in the club, because normally it's just a whole bunch of expats. You don't have to be the best of everything, but you should try and do as much as you can while you're on Earth. That's what I reckon. That's how I live my life by sports. I go out and fun. Never gonna be rich, but I'm gonna be happy.
Reporting from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, this is Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
I wonder how fast they go.
Yeah,
So-
well, that's a sport that I would be very much interested in pursuing and
Really?
being good at, and
Go
being a
far?
champion maybe.
Yeah, I would rather drive than since I can't run anymore because of my knees.
Yeah, so we can participate in that competition. That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. Please join us again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and
We
live in interesting times.
This program is supported by Protect Plus Gold, a broad-spectrum disinfectant, kills 99.9% of disease-causing germs and works in 10 minutes.
Sales can be a very challenging profession even on a regular day. At dahil sa pandemic, ang pagsasagawa ng harap-harapang mga pagpupulong o face-to-face meetings ay nagiging hamon para sa ating lahat. All contact is now done digitally through video conferencing, emails, or chat, which could potentially lead to miscommunication. Paano natin makukuha ang loob ng ating mga kliyente kung hindi natin sila nakikita ng harap-harapan? Yan ang ating aalamin ngayon. Ano nga ba ang strategies for success in remote selling? Tatalakayin ito ni Randy Bernardino, ang ating OFB correspondent mula sa Las Vegas, kasama si Mr. Paulo Tibig.
We have to practice selling the virtual way. Adapt and then stay relevant.
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Si Mang John, isang masipag na tatayan. Lagi ko yung naaabutan sa kanilang bahay, gumagawa ng mga akalan.
Patuloy pa rin siyang malaban sa kanyang buhay. Tinatagawid na ng kanyang mga anak.
Hindi pangkaraniwan ang ipinamalas na pagpupursige at pagmamahal ni Mang Jun para sa kanyang mga anak.
Masaya po ako dahil nakikita ko po si Papa na nag-ano po ng kalan para lang po may makain kaming mag-ama.
Nagtatrabaho sa kabila ng kanyang kapansanan.
2 taon pa lang po ako. Yung mapansin po ni nanay yung paa ko po ay nakalawit. Nung unang panahon daw po ay wala pa daw pong kasinong turok na polio.
Mahirap po talaga. Gumagapang si Papa kahit mainit para lang may makain kami.
Sinisikap po yung aking mga anak na mapagtapos. Ginagapan ko po sa kahirapan.
Ayo! Ayo!
Maraming salamat po sa programa ninyo.
Maraming salamat po talaga. Pagsisikapin ko po para makatapos ako ng pag-aaral.
Tupad na po ang aking pangarap.
Sa mga katulad niyang nagsisikap, may lilingap. Ako po si Apple David at ito ang Lingap Story.